Today's video is sponsored by War Thunder. So OpenAI took the deal with the Department of War, and now everyone is pissed off with OpenAI, including myself. There's a bunch of people currently canceling ChatGPT for working with the Department of War, and Sam Altman himself felt the pressure and had to do a Q&A on Twitter, and is still acting salty in his replies with people, which to me is a little bit insane, because if you're Sam Altman, you had to realize that everyone was going to hate you after you agree to this deal. Because Anthropic, the company that originally got this offer, only had two things they want to remove from the deal, and the Department of War wouldn't do it. So if any company worked with the Department of War after Anthropic outed the Department of War for wanting these two requirements, they would have had to agree to those terms. And of course people were going to be pissed off if you agree to the two terms listed, because they're really basic. But before we get into that, a message from our sponsor. War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made. It is now available for free on PC, mobile, and console. Take command of 2,500 tanks, planes, ships, and helicopters from 10 different major nations, ranging from biplanes and armored cars from the 1920s to fighter jets and modern tanks that we have today. I personally recommend the insane amounts of customization for all those vehicles, with countless camouflages, historical markings, and decorations for all types of vehicles, including community-created ones. Immerse yourself in the intense combat of War Thunder, where incredibly detailed vehicles, realistic graphics, and authentic sound effects place you right at the helm of the most powerful war machines of our time. And War Thunder can run on pretty much anything. It is incredibly well optimized, so join a worldwide community of over 95 million players today in an epic PvP battle, and delve into the breathtaking experience that is War Thunder. With an unmatched wealth for high-quality content to offer, there's simply no better game suited for fans of military history than War Thunder. So what are you waiting for? Play War Thunder for free today on PC, Xbox, PlayStation, or mobile. And new and returning players on PC and console that haven't played in 6 months will also receive a massive bonus pack that includes multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive vehicle decoration Eagle of Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium account access. Again, click that link in the description or the pinned comment down below, and thank you for War Thunder for sponsoring the video. So Anthropic refused to work with the Department of War for two reasons. It was two really basic reasons. The first reason was Anthropic refused to do mass domestic surveillance. Like, the first thing is a really basic thing to refuse, and clearly OpenAI is okay with this. Notice how it doesn't even say mass surveillance, it just says mass domestic surveillance. The only requirement from Anthropic was to not use the AI to watch over the American people. That is literally it. And the Department of War really wanted mass domestic surveillance. So if OpenAI is the one who got the deal with the Department of War instead of Anthropic, we have to assume that OpenAI accepted these terms, which means if you talk to ChatGPT, it is definitely getting funneled straight into the Department of War, which is insane. Like, I think most Americans already kind of know that Google and stuff are on the government side most of the time, right? But this takes it to a whole new level where you had one job, which was to publicly say, we're not gonna do this. Like, if Google, OpenAI, and Grok all said, we're not gonna do these two things, the government would have had to cave because they have no other option. But instead, Anthropic is the only one that actually refused these terms. Like, Google already said they're okay with this, and Grok already said they're okay with this, because what is Elon Musk not okay with? And then OpenAI clearly is okay with it because they took the deal. And the second reason Anthropic refused to work with the Department of War was not allowing fully autonomous weapons. Anthropic did not want to allow Claude, their chatbot, to make a fully autonomous decision to attack a target. That's all this is. Anthropic just wanted a single human being to confirm if a target was accurate or not before firing a missile at it. That's it. And the Department of War said, nah, that's too much. The two requirements Anthropic had to work with the Department of War was no mass domestic surveillance and no fully autonomous weapons, meaning there has to be at least one human being in the kill chain. That is it. That is all Anthropic requested from the Department of War, and they were denied and turned into a supply chain threat for simply not wanting to commit mass surveillance and killing people without any person in the kill chain. That's their crime. And getting labeled as a supply chain risk in the US is kind of a big deal for Anthropic, because when you're a supply chain risk in the US, you can't work with any company that also works with the US military, which is a lot of different companies. So Anthropic is using a huge portion of what would have been their customers because they refused to do genuinely inhumane things. This really is the whole no good deed goes unpunished, because this is crazy. Also, notice the wording of mass domestic surveillance. They were totally okay with doing mass surveillance. They just didn't want to do it on Americans, and that was too much for the Department of War, which is crazy. But since Anthropic refused these deals for this reason, that means means OpenAI accepted these terms and were okay with doing both of these things. That is the only reasonable take to have, because what else would this be? So it's kind of no surprise that everyone is now canceling their ChatGPT, because yeah, why would you want to work with this company anymore? They have blanketly said in public that they're okay with one, fully autonomous weapon controlled by them, and two, they're okay with mass domestic surveillance, which I'm sure Sam Altman was already okay with, but now he's just announcing it to the whole clan. Now, it's important to say that OpenAI in their official statement about this agreement says they did not agree to do those things. They say they agreed to no use of OpenAI technology for mass domestic surveillance, no use of OpenAI technology to direct autonomous weapon systems, no use of OpenAI technology for high-stakes automated decisions, systems such as social credit. And it's crazy they're just lying about this, because that's just what this is. This is just a lie. There is no reason Anthropic would have gotten themselves labeled a supply chain risk if this could have been part of their agreement. Clearly, OpenAI agreed to the terms of mass domestic surveillance and autonomous killbot. They clearly agree to those two things, because there is no world where Anthropic accepts the supply chain risk label just to lie about what the Department of War wanted. There's no chance. So OpenAI coming out afterwards saying, no, we didn't agree to those terms, is just a lie. I never really trusted Sam Altman or OpenAI, because their whole company is kind of like a lie. Like, they started off as a nonprofit when they clearly wanted to be a for-profit company. I think they still are a nonprofit. I don't know. Their whole company structure is a weird mess, but it is crazy to me they would just come out and outright lie after Anthropic already made a statement that proves this statement is a lie. Like, as I said before, there is no way Anthropic would have accepted the supply chain risk label if they didn't feel like it was a serious thing. So the fact that OpenAI is coming out and saying, hey guys, we got that deal that Anthropic refused, and we also got the terms that, like, they refused for, like, we somehow made the Department of War cave to our interest of one of the same things as Anthropic, guys, but totally. Anthropic refused the deal, and they got labeled a supply chain risk because the Department of War wanted mass surveillance and fully autonomous killbot. There is no world where you can convince me that OpenAI managed to convince the Department of War when the Department of War already said OpenAI's chatbot is worse. The reason they wanted Claude is because Claude is better. So you're telling me the people with the better chatbot couldn't get the Department of War to cave, but OpenAI somehow could? Yeah, I don't believe that, and neither does anybody else. It is literally safe to assume that everything OpenAI says is just a lie, because even with Anthropic's statement existing, OpenAI still lied. Like, Anthropic basically called them out on their lie before they did it, and they still lied, which is crazy. Now, I know a lot of people don't want AI in war, period, which is just not gonna happen. It's unrealistic. AI is out of the bag, and it will be used in war to some degree. But I think Anthropic's requests were entirely reasonable. It is seriously concerning the Department of War couldn't agree to these two very simple terms: no mass domestic surveillance and no fully autonomous killbot. Those are the two things they had to agree to, and they couldn't do it, which is seriously concerning. The only bright side of the story is that the better chatbot is not being used for these two things, because the reason they wanted Anthropic to begin with was because Claude was a better chatbot. So at least they're using the worst ones when it comes to mass domestic surveillance, but when it comes to fully autonomous strikes, that one's probably worse. And with how often chatbots hallucinate, it's kind of crazy that the fully autonomous weapons thing was not a bigger thing. Like, that wasn't a concern for any party besides Anthropic. Like, that's crazy. Thank you again to War Thunder for sponsoring the video, and make sure you click the link to the description of the pinned comment down below, because for a limited time, PC and console players who haven't played in the last 6 months will receive a massive bonus pack, which includes multiple premium vehicles and other goodies. But that's been the video. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and like and subscribe, and click into the next for more content, and have a good one.